can we agree that Portishead is one of the best bands of the 90s? It's unofficial Portishead week now, and I'm just kind of running it through in my head. I think we can say that, although definitely their third album is their best album, and that came out in the 2000s. But, you know, they're a very withholding band. That's why I'm calling this Portishead week, because we happen to have a release from one third of the band, Jeff Barrow, and then a couple weeks ago we had the Beth Gibbons. So I'm going to be reviewing the album by Jeff Barrow's band, which is called confusingly Beak, and then the greater than sign, and then this album is called greater than sign, greater than sign, greater than sign, greater than sign. So I don't know how I'm supposed to pronounce that. Even their name is withholding. But it's exciting because if they are one of the best bands, then whatever they put out as solo projects, we need to study and treat as such. You know, if by some great grace John Lennon wasn't shot, and in 1986, 16 years after the last album, Paul McCartney and John Lennon released solo albums within a couple of weeks of each other, we would have thought of those together. We would have been studying them, and we would have thought, you know, does this recreate the feeling? Now, of course, it wouldn't recreate the feeling, but I think that these projects do a fairly good job of recreating that Portishead style feeling. Now, that doesn't mean that you should do something ridiculous like sit on that couch right there and have your phone in one hand and a computer in the other and press play at the exact same time and try to see if the albums sync up somehow, if they don't put you to some kind of Portishead trance. It sort of works. It works on the first song, but the rest, it doesn't really work. So don't worry with that. But I do think if you listen to these albums individually, you don't recapture the magic of Portishead, because Portishead is those two artists working together. And Adrian Utley, I know, I missed the Phil Selway album. I'm embarrassed as a drummer that I did. I'll get around to it someday. But they don't recreate that magic, but you do feel that same kind of atmosphere. You do feel that a lot of that same kind of joy. Thank you for auditing the Always Positive New Music Review Show, hosted by a French professor who once again is recording before his family wakes up. I don't mean to be muted. I don't mean everything to be so atmospheric, but it kind of works, right? Like the light is beaming off the porch, and it's kind of a rainy day here in Rochester. And when I talked about Beth Gibbons, I came up with a sort of way of describing her sound, which I sort of thought applied to Portishead as well. I described it as such, and I have to read it because I think I wrote it pretty well. Some kind of longing, deep, unhurried, atmospheric transcendence with dynamics of tension and release. So what about Jeff Barrow? I think we still have the primary thing, which I think we can say transcends all, you know, the solo work and Portishead as a group, is that sense of the unhurried, atmospheric transcendence. Like the ability to listen to something and feel kind of lifted by it and moved by it, but primarily through atmosphere and the sense that they don't care how quickly they get you there. This album, you know, Beak, has a little more discord and concord, kind of spacey jams, kind of like it's a three-person group, and there's a real jammy familiarity, you know, whereas the Beth Gibbons album was her working with James Ford, who's becoming very quickly a super producer, and a couple of very talented musicians. This album just feels a lot more sort of connected, sort of like three musicians just kind of, for lack of a better word, having fun. I'm sorry, it's just can. It's just can, okay? So it's can, but that's cool, you know? It's cool. It's cool when things are can, all right? Because if you don't know Can is a German rock group from the 70s that just made music that sounds like this. Very extended jams, very cool, unhurried atmosphere, kind of mumbled lyrics, but a sense of musicianship and togetherness that like does everything that jam bands do, that make jam bands great, without the kind of nutty, crunchy, self-satisfied idealism. Maybe that's the way to put it. Like Can and Krautrock are sort of like cynical jam bands, you know? I think that makes sense. And that made me realize, as I was going through trying to figure out like what is it that makes Portishead so good, beyond the fact they're great musicians and songwriters, right? Let's just take that out. But like, what is the bizarre alchemy, the combination of influences that make them what they are? So I spent a lot of time when talking about Beth Gibbons discussing Isaac Hayes, and I think that's definitely there. So then, is Portishead just Isaac Hayes meets Can? I think so. In which case, and this is a scientific term, that's totally rad, dude. That's a completely radical, awesome thing to be, mixing those things together. So when I think about Beak, greater than sign, I hear it and I just hear fun. Like, I hear joy. And I know a lot of the lyrics are kind of down and all that, but I used to be in a band long time ago, 20 plus years ago, right? And it was with two of my best friends, my two best friends at the time. And like, we would do this thing where we would play, and we'd play the songs that we'd written, and we'd play them kind of straight up, and we'd be like, fine. And then sometimes, we'd just jam, we'd just play together. And when those jams were over, we'd say like, we're the greatest band that's ever been. Like, we had this feeling of just like, we have unlocked music. We have finally made the greatest music ever. To the point where we once played a show at Mass Art in Boston where we thought, we'll just improvise everything. We'll just get up on stage and we'll write songs right in front of them. It did not end well. My lead singer just ended up talking about dragons the whole time. But still, that feeling that you have, that feeling of like that awesome togetherness, like that is very transcendent when you're a good band and you play together, I get that from this album. Like, okay, if I go to the Record Archive in Rochester, New York, and I see that there's a Beak album for sale, even if it's not this album, this is the first album I've ever heard of theirs. I haven't heard their other stuff. I wasn't paying attention to music when that stuff came out. Like, I'm sure I'll just buy it and I'll just love it, because this world that they create, this atmosphere, this connectiveness is just so fun. It's just so fun. And one thing that I think is great is the similarity to the Beth Gibbons album, Lives Outgrown. What can we see as the similarity? It's drums. And I think that's the other thing that we need to add to that sort of Isaac Hayes and Can thing. It's like there's a real rhythmic basis to all of this. And maybe that's some of the trip hop influence. I don't quite know how to say why drums are so important in these projects. But what's so cool is that in the Beth Gibbons album, all the drums, there was just no cymbals. It was all just toms, muted toms. Whereas this is just some random dude playing drums the entire time. Did I say random dude? No, this is Jeff Barrow. This is the guy. This is the face of the band, one of the faces of Portishead, and he's just playing drums the whole time. When the star of your band is a drummer, it does change the way your band sounds. Sorry, it's kind of I just woke up. It's cool though, it's cool. This is one of those damn the algorithm type videos, like if you're watching this, you're one of the real ones, And the humor's everywhere. The album cover has like a little dog shooting lasers. So I listen to music with my family all the time. My family loves this album. This album, I play it on these speakers here through the Bluetooth deal, and it just fills up the house, and we all enjoy it. And as always, my baby loves drums, so she loves this album, especially the second track. She just starts, hey, doing a little dance like that. And then she loves dogs, and the album cover is a dog shooting lasers at them. It's not serious. I did some research. I found where that dog is. Do you know where that dog is? That dog is above the Clifton Suspension Bridge in Bristol. Bristol is a place in England where Portishead is from. The very Bristolness. Did you know there's a town right next to Bristol called Portishead? It's true. And right next to Oxford, there's a little town called Radiohead. And somewhere in Long Island, actually, there's a little tiny beach called Talking Heads Beach. I get one joke per video. That was my joke. Now it's all ready to go. It's all ready to say, okay, I've said everything I want to say about this video. And then I just happened to go onto their Bandcamp, and I happened to read the genre thing. And I read something that I didn't know existed, okay? So listen, I'm a part-time music critic, okay? I am a full-time full-time French professor. That is my job. I'm an administrator as well at my university. I do all sorts of stuff, okay? So I'm not like a music critic. I'm not a real music critic. I'm an amateur music critic, okay? There's a term that I just discovered yesterday in reference to this album called post-rock. Did you know this existed? You probably did. If you're big enough into Beak to be watching me talk about this. Sorry, my dog's having a nightmare. For watching this for however long you're going to be watching it, you know post-rock, but I just want to talk about it because I find it interesting. Post-rock is a genre, and this comes from the Britannica online. A genre of experimental rock music that combines elements of art rock, jazz, alternative, and electronic influences to create richly textured soundscapes. Check, check, and check. We're in Beak country, baby. The term post-rock was coined in 1994 by music critic Simon Reynolds in his discussion of the music Talk Talk. Talk Talk. The drummer of Talk Talk is the guy who co-wrote some of the songs with Beth Gibbons. It all comes together. Post-rock generally applied to the bands that use typical instruments of a rock band. Beak. 2 guitars, okay, 1 guitar, beak, a bass, beak, and drums, beak, with non-traditional rhythms, melodies, and chord progressions. Guitars created ambiance by altering the color and quality of the sound. Vocals, if they were included, were frequently treated not as a vehicle for lyrics, but as an additional instrument. That's one of my notes for this whole, before I discovered the term post-rock existed, that's what I said about the lyrics on this project. The focus was on the texture of the music and the sound produced rather than on the melodic patterns. The super wild thing is when I learned about this, I was looking up for research, like what are the essential post-rock albums? And it turns out this is one of them. Millions Now Living Will Never Die. Or Soon Die. I think it's Never Die. I wrote Soon Die, but I might have been a joker when I did that. This album by Tortoise, you know? You ever hear of this album? I bought this album when it came out. I saw Tortoise play a concert at the Middle East in Boston, 96. I looked it up. It was probably May 1st, 1996. Almost 30 years ago. Humbling. But what's interesting about that is I had no idea that they represented some other genre. Whatever it was that Tortoise did, and I hear it, and I think about it, and I go, oh yeah, of course, that's exactly what Beak is doing. Like, of course, these things are all connected. So, I don't know. Someone once asked me, Skye, what are your opinions on genre? They're fine. It's usually useful, I think. It's usually useful only because genres tend to create, like, musicians tend to be inspired by musicians in a certain genre. So like if you're coming up and you really like Beak and then you hear Tortoise and you really like Tortoise and you want to make music like that, you're not sitting there and like looking it up on the internet. Those are just sounds that interest you. So it's like a wave, it's like a constellation of influences that are often clustered. I think that's the most interesting way to think about genre. Anyways, if you like what you're watching, smash the like button, subscribe, put in AVAA, that stands for awesome video as always. I will always heart a comment that says that, especially on a video like this of a lesser known act. So let's talk about this. Let me give you an example song, The Seal. Oh my God, what a great song. Just here, click on it there if you haven't heard it, okay? Let me look at the time, 13 minutes. I have to remember to go back and put a card right there, okay, Skye? Remember, 13, your favorite number, way before Taylor, your favorite number. The Seal. Very agitating sounds, very can-like, this cool drum line on the ride cymbal, just these 2 bass notes, sort of like chill and cool, and then these lyrics, which are just part of the texture. Inside guilt breathes, inside guilt breaths feel tied to the brim, keep it back sung, we keep it hidden in the walls of life. You know the seal will light us. It's not quite psychedelic, which I like, because psychedelic lyrics are fine, but it feels more just sort of like incidental, like someone's just singing to say something and they can just keep playing. Because, come on, we don't really want instrumental albums. I mean, unless it's, you know, something like that. But in general, we don't want instrumental albums. And there's all these great, like the drummer is actually leading the jam. You can hear it. The drummer is leading these changes. And then every once in a while they bring in this slight kind of vocodery style effect of just a drone just on one side, and then it'll switch to the other. Eventually the guitar solo comes in that kind of lands on this drone note. So I discussed this in Beth Gibbons, you know, the sort of a English folk style is based on sort of a bass note drone, and everything returns to that note. That's what this kind of nice clean guitar solo is. I do think sort of one more thing, if we want to talk about post-rock, I think we need to put the Doors in there. Between Riders on the Storm and The End, they managed to create that kind of atmosphere. I think somewhat, I don't know. I feel like The End and Riders on the Storm are like the most effective classic rock songs at creating a certain atmosphere. And I imagine, though, even though a bunch of sort of like 90s hipsters and everybody would sort of be like, oh, Doors are lame, man, I'm cooler than that. I think it's an important step in rock history. Freaky fall apart sounds. It just has this great, it's hard to describe this music because it's just so well made and just so like not crafted. It's well made, it's not well crafted. These are not musicians sitting around tweaking the perfect compression microphone or figuring out, right? This is not Pet Sounds, right? This is Can. Okay, this is Tonight's the Night. This is like a very kind of raw and excellent example of musicianship. I'm gonna go through the rest of the album much quicker. Opening track is Strawberry Line. Organ to start, kind of a solemn feel. The drums come in, this cool, great fuzz bass. It's spacey and loose. The lyrics are like, hear me now. I don't know what you're saying, but I guess I'll hear you now. Then the stamp, the seal, that leads directly into Windmill Hill, jammy, and the guitar plays on the whammy bar. So there's a way, like, so a whammy bar is connected to the bridge of a guitar, and when you play the guitar and you press the whammy bar, it loosens all the strings. So you go bing, wow. There's a way of playing, and like it's sort of a shoegazy thing. They'll do it quite often. You know, My Bloody Valentine or whatever, where you sort of like play the guitar with the whammy bar a little bit down, and it creates a very warbly, detuned feeling. Denim is just this great bass line. Again, almost like Twin Peaksy kind of freak out sound, has this far away sound. The way he sings sort of lacks confidence, which I like. It's kind of like a Peter Hook of New Order style thing. Nice little cute melody pops in here. And then the only thing in the whole album I'm not a real fan of is just like a part where the guitar gets kind of like heavy metal-y. It feels a little affected. Hungry Are We is a song about Yoda wanting to eat lunch. He's a gentle kind of guitar line. I said I had one joke. The other joke was better than this one, so I'm sorry. The lyrics are like more central, at least the vocals are, but then you actually go to the lyrics and what do they mean? Basically, by the way, the first 3 times I listened to the album, I didn't pick up any lyrics the whole time. Like, they're just part of the texture. Far from are we, they cannot see, hungry are we. I guess maybe it's a song about, like, the class divide. Yeah. Just an awesome little, like, here, this is almost like a drum solo. Most of it's being played on the toms. The toms, if you ever play drums, I have a problem when I play drums where I get too into the tones of the toms and I try to make little songs out of the toms because, you know, they ding, 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 right? So you make ding, 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 right? This is doing that, but super well. It's just a great groove. Bloody Miles, little rhythms, like other synthesizers. This is like the synthesizer song, basically, where you have these like this warbled synths and these little faster synths happening. After a couple of minutes, eventually the drums come in. Secrets, another more of a rattier sound. The drums kind of doing a 1-2, 1-2. Simple for the bass to come in. It's kind of easy to zone out on this one. Cellophane is the final track, gentle and cool. The singer reminds me at times of the Flaming Lips guy, you know? Electric guitar kind of mirrors the melody that's being sung. Now the wind has blown the paper down. Now the truth is laid out there. We could read the stalks and fight again. Come and take the lonely crown. I don't know. Maybe it's good kind of 90s-ish standard G. Willikers, we hate capitalist pigs music. I'm not quite sure. These are my Patreons. I asked them if they want a shout out on the Portishead week. Maya Weberin and Harlan T both wanted shout-outs. They both also wanted shout-outs for the Beth Gibbons, but I asked too late. So there you go. Oh yeah, these are my Patreons. They give me money, and then I'm going to buy this album. I'm going to buy both of the Portishead albums. And stay tuned. I'm probably going to do a special video just about the song The Rip. I'm probably going to pre-record it this summer, and then release it when I'm in the hospital having my next baby. So there you go. All right. Well, until next time, for Bo and Toby. There's Bo. Seems as though his nightmare's over. Nightmare's over, buddy. He's going to wake up. He's going to shoot lasers. There's the camera.